Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. We'll see who is on the call. I know we've got a bunch of people who signed up and we've got people watching in different places. So as soon as you are here on the call, go ahead and let me know so I can say hello. So it's a nice Thursday night here, a week from Thanksgiving, so things are busy, and I appreciate you taking the time to show up and be here with me live. We're getting people checking in here, so I'm going to give everybody a couple minutes, and we'll do that. Virginia, oh wow, that's a pretty name, Virgela. I hope that's how you say it. Hello to you. So welcome, and that's a lovely name. Wow. Okay, that's great. So I always thought my name was complicated because people don't want to put the E on the end of it. So, but yours is so lovely. So I'm hoping everybody has the PDF for tonight. And because we're talking about beginning. So, and beginning is so important. So if you are here, just type something in the chat. I see our numbers are going up all the time. So this is good. Just say hello in the chat so I know that you're here. And then I can say hello back. We are going to talk about what it's like being a beginner. It's been a very long time since I was a beginner. Oh, Connie's here. Welcome, Connie. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Florida in February too. And Lynette's here. Hi, Lynette. Charles is here. Hello. So, and LL is here. Wonderful. Some of these people I recognize from our Monday warm-ups or from My Heart Mastery. Joy is here. Hello. Is that Joy or Jay? I can't read. Sorry, it's my eyes. Sonia's here. Yay, she made it. Good. Sonia was looking for the link, so that's good. So, and I'm just going to check and make sure that all our tech is working the way it's supposed to, because that's always, looks like we're going just fine. So good. So Inez is here, and you're new to this class. Well, welcome. Welcome. We're happy to have you here. So as I was saying, it's been a very long time since I was a beginner. But of course, I work with harpists at all levels all the time. So I'm pretty good with knowing and remembering for sure what beginning is like. And beginning the harp is a little bit like starting anything else. And it's very different at the same time. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about what is so hard about beginning the harp. And in particular, I think where you might feel like you're making great progress and where you might start to find that you're stalling out. So I did call this Pro Tactics for Beginners, the fastest way to stop being a beginner and start playing like a harpist. So that's what we're going to be talking about, where people get stuck. This isn't something that I encounter very much with children. I mean, I don't teach children very much anymore. And of course, they're sort of in there for the ride, right? They're just like, okay, I'm coming to my lessons and I'm doing what the teacher says. And there we go. But adults have a different level of ambition, don't we? We're determined. We're going to do this harp thing. We're going to do it right. And we don't want it to take forever until we can start playing the music that we want to play. So we're a little bit more driven. The good news is that we're much more disciplined about following through and really, paying attention to what the teacher says and trying to do it. So that's the good news. The bad news is that it's really hard to have that same level of experimentation that kids have when they're learning. And that's really beneficial. Not just experimentation, but some of the kid beginner mindset, which is so different from adult beginner mindset. And we'll be talking about that. So, yep. Excellent. Yes, I'm looking at Connie's comment in the chat. She's excited to learn in Florida. Connie is coming to our getaway retreat in Florida. And one of my gold circlers, Pam Winteroth, recommended that she come. So I thanked Pam for that. And as Connie said, she's not a beginner, but she still thought she might get something out of this. And Lori Smith is here. She's not a beginner either, but that's okay. So let's just do a sort of a quick show of hands here. Is there anybody on the call who has been playing the harp for 12 months or less? 12 months or less. Joyce says she's been a beginner for years. Oh, yeah, that's what we want. That's what we want to stop. We want to stop you from being a beginner for years. It's exactly what I'm talking about. Anybody here who's actually been playing for less than 12 months? I know some of you on the call, I know. So I know that you have been playing longer than that. And that's okay. This isn't, this is, oh, look at that. Charles restarted in April. Okay, I'll take that. Good for you. About 2 years for you. Okay, wonderful. That's fine. Yes, exactly. Yep, been about 2 years for you. So that's okay. I'll tell you, I've been playing the harp for, maybe I shouldn't tell you. I've been playing the harp for, I have lost count. A really, really, really long time. Oh, just a couple of weeks, more than a year, says LL. Woohoo! Well, welcome. Good for you. Okay, excellent. Okay, so I've been playing for a really, really long time. So I have a whole different perspective. But being a beginner, you can be stuck at beginner for a long time if you don't know how to get moving. So let's start today. First of all, does everybody have the PDF, the training guide? If you don't, I'll put that just in case you didn't get it. Let me find it. Where is it? It's over here. Let me put the link to that in the chat for you. Move my notes a little bit and get this link, and I'll put it in the chat. If you didn't get the PDF for this session, it is here. And you can find that there. So just in case you didn't get it. All right, showing up everywhere. Excellent. So I started this off with, I found this quote, always need motivation, says Sonia. Yeah, I know, me too. Me too. This is good. So I started the PDF off with this quote because I'm not sure exactly. I'm not sure exactly what C.S. Lewis meant by it. He said, miracles are for beginners. And it's just such a motivational kind of a statement, that things can be miracles, right? So I just sort of throw that out there because it was sort of an interesting idea to me. But let's dive into this material and see what we can do. We'll kind of cut to the chase, get to the good stuff. Now, I have a whole pad of sticky notes here. I don't expect to go through my whole pad tonight, just so you know, but I want us to think about being a beginner harpist. So if you are a beginner harpist, then you're pretty close to this. And we have some people on the call who would qualify or who think they qualify. So for those of us who've been on the journey for a little while, we'll cast our minds back and think about what it is like to be a beginner harpist. I mean, okay, so what do you do as a beginner? That's fine. What do you believe? How do you feel? And those last two questions are kind of tricky because I think that most people come to the harp with a lot of excitement and a lot of motivation. Oh, awkward, says Joyce. She feels awkward as a beginner. Well, yes, you do feel awkward, don't you? Because it's hard. It's hard. There's a lot of stuff to do. And so why don't we start there? I've got my Post-it notes. I've got my pen. And let's just brainstorm for a little bit. So you're going to have to be ready to type in the chat here and tell me what are some of the things that you need to learn as a beginner harpist. Oh, a bit overwhelmed, says LL. Yeah, it is overwhelming, no question. So think about being overwhelmed, all of you. Think about what is it that you have to learn as a beginner. When you come to the harp, what do you have to learn? I'm going to start it off. I'm going to say you have to learn where the strings are. I mean, really, I know that sounds basic, but you have to learn where the strings are because, you got to get your fingers on the right strings. Yeah. Stick it on the wall. Oops, I stuck it right behind me. I'll stick it over here. There we go. What else? Hand placement. Okay, hand placement. Yep. What else do you have to learn? I'm going to get writer's cramp here. How to move your fingers and hands. Okay. Oh, yeah, now you're coming in. How to move. Okay, I'm just going to abbreviate here. How to work. Oh, hands together. How to tune. How to fix a string that breaks. Who said read music? Okay, let me get that one in here. To read music. I should have had a scribe, tune. What else do we have? Yep. Okay. Tune. Good. Hands together we had. Okay. I'm going to have to do fix a string. What else? Learning the C's are blue. Yes. Did you know learning the C's are red? What am I writing? Fix a string. Okay. Did you know? And maybe you did, but even when I started harp using levers, okay. When I started harp, they still had they had the red C's and the blue F's, but they still had what used to be called blue or black F's, what used to be called old stringing system. And in the older stringing system, the C's were green and the F's were red. Charles says he's restringing his harp while he's on the call. Excellent. How to position the harp. Okay. Position the harp. So every once in a while I would run into, I don't anymore, but you used to be able to buy those strings, with the green C's. And every once in a while I would run into a harp. Good technique. Okay. I would run into a harp that had the green C's and boy, couldn't play that for anything. Actually, my piano teacher had a harp that was strung with the green C's and I couldn't play anything on her harp. Ooh, buzzing. All right. I don't know that that's a real beginner concern, but it certainly is a concern. So we'll put that up there. I think I missed something. Position the harp. What fingers not to use? Okay. I like that one. I know you guys could come up with stuff not to use. And we have position the harp. How to structure your practice time. Ooh, love that one. Sit properly. Okay, sit properly. Did I put, oh, I did put what fingers not to use. I think I missed something though. Position the harp. Okay. I'm scribbling. The finger numbers. Yes. Ooh, cross unders and overs. Okay. I'll just write crosses because it's taking too much time. Finger numbers. I'm just going to write fingering. Is that okay? And I'll put numbers here too. There we go. Getting used to the harp on your shoulder. Oh, okay. Yes. All right. On shoulder. Okay. What else? Do not compare yourself to others. Ooh. Okay. Wow. Isn't that a tough one? Okay. Finger independence. Placing before you play. Oh, she comes up with all the good answers. I love that. Placing. Finger independence. I'm going to be out of the pink notes and into the blue notes in a minute. Finger independence. You guys are good. I'm going to have to call a halt to this when I run out of pink, if not before. Finger independence. Okay. What else did I have? Patience. Oh, says the guy who is stringing his harp. Yeah, patience. Time signatures and keys. How to make the strings sing. Ooh. I'll just write sing because, but we'll have to remember that I don't mean how to sing. Time signatures. Time sigs. Keys. Okay. Anything else? Ooh. I think I got most of your comments. All right. Well, it's a pretty good list here that you came up with. So let's yeah, it did some damage. Look at that. That's all the pink Post-it notes I have left. I'll put them away. I think that's enough. Lever advances. I put levers up here, but maybe, oh, changes. God. Okay. All right. I'm going to add it. There we go. Changes. Yes. Learning things you never heard of before. Lori, I love that. Okay. Learning things you never heard of before. I'll write new, but like glissando, she says, and harmonics. Okay. All right. Okay. You guys are good. We've got a lot of them. So all of this stuff is stuff we have to learn as harpists. Fortunately, it doesn't all come up at the beginning. I mean, the very first day you play the harp, you probably aren't worried about, hopefully, about fixing a string. And you might not be worried about comparing yourself with others because you'll be too busy the very first day you start the harp. But a lot of these things are things that we are trying to learn all at once as we play. And so it's really, really tough. I mean, you're trying to learn all of these things. And at the same time, going back to where did that one go? How to make the strings sing. At the same time, the music that you're working on doesn't sound as pretty as you'd hoped, right? Because it's so hard to get around everything. And playing a piece, learning to play it takes so much longer than you thought. It can be very discouraging as a beginner. And the irony about the harp is that it's the easiest thing to just run your finger over the strings, and you do this glissando, and that's when we fall in love with the harp, right? We go, oh, isn't that wonderful? And that's the last easy thing we do on the harp. After that, it's all harder. So it's a little bit tricky to actually get past that beginner stage. And that's what I want to talk about today. So what happens, most of these things, a lot of these, we talked about good technique, about fingering numbers, how to put your hands on the harp, how to sit at the harp, getting used to the harp on your shoulder, what fingers not to use. We talked about all those things. And all of those are the things that we're trying to do right at the beginning of our harp study. And they're all important. Getting that good foundation is really important. It's got all those essential skills, but you don't have to stay in, as I say on the PDF, you don't have to stay in the slow lane to keep working on these things. You get to play music at the same time. So let's think for just a moment of all these things we put up here. What is actually involved in learning and playing a piece of music? Well, yes, you have to have enough technique to get around the notes, don't you? So technique is important, but really we only put a couple of things up here that actually have to do with playing the music. Like, let me see, singing was one. Oh, time signatures and keys. And we have singing. We had, I know we had reading music up here. We had, there was something else. Well, patience, perhaps. How to move. You know what? We didn't even put on there how to move the harp. That was not that one. Maybe the glisses and the harmonics. Certainly where the strings are. That's kind of a biggie. So there are ones that are more related to actually learning a piece of music. Oops. And I put them all on the floor. Let's see. Where'd they go? Here they are. Oops. Now they're upside down. Okay. So those are more related to playing a piece of music. But we still have to do all these other things just to get our fingers on the right strings and to get them moving, right? To put hands together, all that stuff. So while all of that goes into playing a piece of music, it doesn't make it any easier, does it? Because we're still trying to get our fingers on the right strings. So let's sort of organize this a little bit and see what we can do. So if you're looking at your PDF, and I am, well, I'm not here, these are my notes, but I'm gonna, in case I forget what the PDF is talking about, but go on to the second page of your PDF, which is the Harpist pie recipe. So if you're thinking about what goes into playing the harp, I have basic ingredients. And for me, I identified the basic ingredients as the stuff you need. I mean, the harp, the bench, the stand, the tuner, the stuff you need, right? The metronome, the stuff you need. And then I also put in that category as basic ingredients, I put, okay, there we go. Oh, I just lost placing. Well, we'll get placing up there. There we go. I also put tuning. So all the stuff that you need, right? I mean, this is not the kind of beginner class where we're going to talk about, okay, here's how to buy a harp. That's not what we're talking about today. I'm figuring you've got that. Tuning, however, I am putting in the basic ingredients. This is one of those pay to play things, you have to be able to tune your harp. So that's, and with tuners, not such a big deal, but you have to know how to tune. Back in the day when I grew up, we didn't have tuners. I was still a student when they finally came out with strobe tuners, which at that time were these big boxes that weighed about 18 pounds. I remember when I finally bought my first strobe tuner when I could afford it. I mean, because it had to plug into the wall and it was this big suitcase kind of thing you carried around with you. I was so excited because my strobe was small. It only weighed 12 pounds. So imagine you're carrying the harp, you're carrying all this other stuff, and you're carrying that tuner. Because when I started tuning, all we had were tuning forks. You listened to one note, and then you had to tune the whole harp based on that one note. So, learning to tune was a different thing. Quartz tuners are great, but you do have to tune. So tuning's down there, sort of that basic ingredient. Oh, Janet, don't worry about being late. We just started talking about the pie, but I'm glad you're here. So I think those are the basic ingredients, but the pie itself has 5 areas. Now, if you're a My Harp Mastery member, these are going to sound a little familiar to you, although I've worked it a little bit differently. One of those areas is definitely technique. Yes, the pie on the PDF. Look on the pie, page 2, the PDF. So let's see. What was I saying? Technique. A lot of these things are technique, yes? We've got, plain old good technique. And of course, we've got posture, we've got hand placement, we've got fingering, we've got finger independence was up there someplace. I think that's the one I forgot to write. So all that stuff is up there, all that technique. And that's one segment of the pie. So you can take one of those blanks, doesn't matter which color, doesn't matter. Just pick one of those segments of the pie and you can label that technique. Anything that our fingers need to do to play the strings falls under the category of technique. The second area of the pie, I think, is note reading. We put that one up here too, right? Read music. Yeah. Note reading. Note reading is essential. If you are a new harpist and you've come to the harp and you've never played any music before, note reading is going to be really, really important for you. If you already know how to read music, sharpening that skill, making sure that you're learning to read faster all the time, working at your sight reading is going to help you learn more music faster. So that's really important. So that's why I gave note reading its whole segment of the pie. By the way, these are 5 equal segments. That doesn't mean that I think all these things are equal or take equal time. It's just a visual thing. So they're just segments of the pie. So we have technique on one, note reading on another. The third one I put as music theory. Now, when I'm talking about music theory, I'm talking about the very basic things that I think Charles mentioned right in here. Time signatures, keys, um, scales, and maybe intervals and even triads, those 3-note chords. That's all you need. You don't need to learn all kinds of complicated harmony things. You'll learn those as you need them as you go. But the more you understand and the more you just expose yourself to the idea of, oh, yes, this key signature means this. It doesn't just mean I push these levers or pedals. It means, okay, this is G major. And what does G major tell you? Well, it tells you you're going to be playing a lot of G's and probably a lot of B's and D's, because that's the triad for G major. So it can help you find patterns in the music. So that basic theory knowledge, keys, time signatures, scales, intervals, triads, the big ones that are going to help you. Now, do I think you need to stop all your harp playing and learn these? No. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. So we'll get there. Then fourth segment of the pie, I couldn't figure out exactly how I wanted to say this. Maybe you guys have an idea, but it's all the rhythmic aspect of music. It's the rhythm, it's the counting, it's using the metronome, all of those things. So you can just put that in, you could call it time, you could call it rhythm, you can call it counting, whatever it is, it's all of those things. And that's an important piece of the pie too, right? Because if you have your fingers playing all the right notes on the right strings and you know what chords they're playing, it still isn't going to sound right if it's not in time. So that's the fourth ingredient in the pie. And then the fifth one, and somebody mentioned this too. Did I put it up here? Ooh, that might have been one that I didn't get to write, that I just said, because somebody mentioned it in the chat. And that is how to practice. How to practice is so important. Practicing is a skill. And when you know what practice is about, it makes a huge difference. And if you are coming to the harp as a newbie and you've played the harp before, or you've played an instrument before, you know a little bit about how to practice. But truly, I find that practice is one of the things that we never teach. Or I try to be better than that. But it's really difficult to teach people how to practice. And when I was teaching younger students, we always made it a process where, they once they got to be middle school age, I'd start asking them questions that would guide them to thinking about what they needed to do during the week. And then as they got older, they would have more and more responsibility for designing their own practice things, right? I mean, when they're 4 years old, it's like, okay, play this 3 times, do this hands together 2 times, whatever it is like that. But as you go on, then you learn more about practicing. Now, as an adult, we don't want to start there. We know how to learn. You don't have to start there. But knowing how to practice is so important. And if you've never had music training before, that's something that can make a really big difference. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. So these are the 5 areas that I think are really critical, that when you're working on these 5 things all the time, that's when you're going to make progress. So that's technique and note reading. It's theory, it's rhythm, and it's practice skills. Those are the things that go into learning music that you really need to have and to have in place. If you don't have any technique, doesn't matter how good you are at reading notes, you're not going to be able to play them because your fingers won't do it. And you could read the notes and have a fabulous technique, but if you're not practicing enough or practicing the right way, you're still not going to make progress in your music. Does that make sense? So just take a moment and consider those segments before we go on here for a second. Take a moment and think about them: technique, note reading, theory, rhythm, and practice. And just take a moment to think about which ones you're strongest in or weakest in, or maybe which ones you hadn't thought about, and choose one of them. Like, oh, the thing I'm weak in is this, or whatever. Put it in the chat And let's say, okay, yeah, no, I'm really good at practicing. All right. I need help with my technique. Or, where are you strongest or weakest? And the good that landed right in the trash can. I don't know what it was, but it doesn't belong there. Oh, buzzing. Well, buzzes do belong in the trash can, but that's all right. So think about what's easy for you, what's not easy for you. Where do you think if you put some more time into this one place, you'd be able to move faster? And frankly, this isn't just a beginner question, because this is something that we all address all the time. Oh gosh, my technique's getting a little bit rusty. I think I need to spend some more concentrated time on that. Or I'm not really reading ahead, or, I'm just kind of on autopilot through my practice. So there are these are all things that we need to think about all the time. Oh, she says she definitely needs help with structuring practice time. Oh, timing, says Raquel. Okay, says Rachel. All right. Note reading, says LL. More organized practice, says Lori. Okay. These are important things to think about. Technique, for joy. Okay. Well, that's probably the easiest one, the clearest one to see a path forward, but need to use the metronome more. Okay, Lynette, it's right there. Right. And and these days, the metronome's only as far as your phone, right? So you don't have it used to be, oh, my metronome broke. Well, not anymore. So, okay. Counting, says Lori, and rhythm and counting. Connie says the metronome. Arg. Okay. All right. So let's be sure to come back to these, because I want to get through the concepts that we want to talk about, but I can give some tips for those too. So I'll try to remember to come back to them in the chat, and we can talk about them. But I'd like to sort of talk about these beginner missteps and the pro tactics. I think I talked about these missteps as pitfalls, but they're not traps you can't get out of. A pitfall, I always think of those jungle movies, right? They're walking through the jungle and they go and they fall into the pit and they can't get out. These are just missteps. You can get out of these. They're easy to address, take a little bit of work, yes, but that's okay. So we'll talk about that. One of them, I didn't even list, but I'm going to mention it to you now. It's not even one of the three that I chose, but it's trying to take care of all these things at once, because you don't have to. There are a lot of things and so many things that go into this, right? But you don't have to take care of them all at once. You don't have to work on them all at once. So you can take that and relax a little bit, and we'll go through the missteps. The first one, I think, and these are particular to adult students, I believe, and it's looking at each thing, whatever it is you're doing, as something to master before you move on. So it sounds like a good thing. I want to finish this before I start this, right? Sounds like a good thing. So we're taught that for so many things. Well, finish what you start, then you can go on to the next thing. But music doesn't work that way. So hang on to that. Just let that buzz around in your brain for a moment, a good kind of buzzing. And let me give you the second one. And it's the fear of developing bad habits. So you can write that one on your paper, fear of developing bad habits. And the third one is that you want to get every detail correct. I'm going to play with perfect position. I'm going to get all my fingers on the right strings. I'm going to get every note right. Getting all those details correct. All of these things sound excellent. They sound exactly like what we want to do, right? We want to finish things before we move on. We want to not develop any bad habits. We don't, we want to make sure that we're not going to waste time by having to correct a bad habit. And we want to get every detail correct. They sound like good things, but here's the thing. They can trap you. And I want to just mention that, and then we'll get on to the alternative, what the pros know here. So if we try to finish everything before we move on, we're going to be spending a lot of time working on perfecting something that we're going to have to come back and do again. And it's for this reason. So way back, when I was, even before I had Harp Mastery, I did a course called Etude a Day. And it still lives in the My Harp Mastery library. They're the only people who have access to it anymore because it's an old course. So My Harp Mastery members, if you want to go back and look at some poor quality videos, because they were back then, and who knows what my hair is like, and it's a whole different thing because they're so old. So it's good, but the course is still good. And so that, as I said, lives in My Harp Mastery. And I started it before it was even a course. I did it as a I think a Facebook challenge, and we did one etude every day. Now, we didn't finish the etude because there's not time to finish in a day, but I did this challenge because I really was, and still am, convinced that we can't get the same amount of value from practicing an etude for a month to really get it right before we move on to the second etude in the book, as we can from spending a week on the etude and then moving on to the next one. Moving on in a day is a little bit crazy, an etude a day. We did it just to sort of experiment with it, and it works, but the etudes, they can be a little bit challenging, right? So the thing is that what we learn, whether it's an etude or a piece of music, we learn what we can at a given time. And if you try to finish it now, the finishing that you can do at your stage of development, whatever that is right now for your harp playing, is not the way you're going to be able to finish it in another 6 months or another 6 years or another 6 weeks. Your skills all around will have developed more. This is why when you hear a kid playing on their piano recital and they're playing, a grown-up piece, most of the time, I mean, there are really talented kids out there, but a lot of the time it still sounds like a little kid playing a piece. They play it very well, but when the teacher plays it, it's a whole different piece, right? Sonia says she enjoyed that course. Yeah, I like it too. So it's a whole different piece when the teacher plays it. It's the same thing. You can finish that piece to the best of your ability now, but in another 6 months, you're going to be able to finish it maybe at a different tempo, a different level of smoothness, with a different range of expression, because your skills will have improved. And we get more value from some variety, because the more different things that we learn, that we experience, that we read, that we play with our fingers, the more different things that we learn, the faster we learn. So staying with one thing until it's done is very limiting. And so if you want to jump right down to what the pros know, what the pros know is that they know the value of time and consistency. So just sticking with something and realizing that it's going to get better over time. You don't have to finish it now. You can come back to it. The time that elapses in between now and later is going to make a huge difference to that piece. So you finish it the way you can now, but don't get yourself bogged down in it when you know that you're going to be able to come back to it later, and it will be so much better, so much easier, right? Think about the pieces you played a year ago. You could go back and they'd be not nearly as challenging as they were when you were trying to get through them the first time? Oh, she says, that's a very different perspective than what I've been thinking. That's why I offer this, because it's something that I call experience points, and we'll get that in just a moment too. So yeah, I know you can get with it. The idea that you have to finish it, no, you don't. I mean, okay, if you've committed to playing this piece on a recital, then yeah, you probably have to stick with it for a long time. But the idea is that you don't have to have etude number 1 perfect before you do etude number 2, because you'll do etude number 1 and get what you can from it. Then you work on etude number 2, get what you can from it. And eventually you'll get to etude 25. And then what? Guess what happens? You come back to etude 1 again, and you're playing it. Instead of playing it at this level, you're now playing it at this level. It's very different. Okay, so the fear of developing bad habits. What does that do? Well, it keeps us slow, doesn't it? It means that, okay, if I'm afraid to develop, okay, my fingers are good, they're on the strings, I'm sitting properly, everything looks really good, and I have to watch all those things in order to play my piece of music. I got to make sure my thumbs are closing over and my fingers are closing. That just slows you down, doesn't it? Because you're trying to not just play the notes, and maybe reading notes isn't so easy for you at the moment either. And you're trying to learn notes and trying to get hands together and trying to make sure that all of this happens, when actually, if all you did was say, okay, I worked on my technique, I worked on my posture, I did my exercises and my scales, and now I'm going to work on the piece, and I'm going to put that concentration on technique aside for a moment, and I'm going to pay attention to the fingering. I'm going to do what I can, but I'm going to get the notes out, because that's part of playing a piece. And then you know that, okay, as I'm a little bit more familiar with the notes, I can bring in some of that technique concentration again and that focus. But the truth is, you can't focus on everything at once. And if you're so afraid that if you do your technique wrong, it's going to stick with you forever. If you do a fingering wrong, it's going to stick with you forever. Don't worry about that. Let yourself be a little flexible, but focus on one thing at a time and let everything else go. You're going to correct it. You're going to come back. You're going to fix it, but don't be so worried about it. Those of you who've been with me for a while, and you'll remember that I talk about this as part of speeding up tempos too, right? When you speed up a tempo, you have to be prepared for some mess. It's going to be ugly, and it's going to be, all those notes you practice so carefully are going to get all messed up again. But that's part of the process. You'll straighten them out again. But you can only do one thing at a time. And that's why the pros know, to go down to that second section again, the pros know the value of experience over perfection. You don't have to have everything perfect at the same time. Let yourself experience the music and then put the technique back in it. This is why we have exercises that have pretty simple musical requirements, so that we don't have to focus on the music and the fingers at the same time. It'll work, but just one thing at a time. That's all we can do well, especially if we want to move along, right? Okay, so getting every detail correct, it's kind of the same thing, isn't it? If you worry about getting every detail correct, it takes so long to do something. If you could play the piece and say, okay, yeah, I know my fingering was kind of bad there, and then you can go back and correct that, that's okay. And you don't have to have every detail of a piece perfect to declare that it's finished. You get to move on, because as I said before, you'll come back to it. And here's what the pros know. You can be done with something without being finished with it. Everything we do in our harp playing is about it. I can describe it best like a spiral staircase, right? Think about a spiral staircase. It goes up, and it's all in the same little silo, right? I mean, you're going around the same square of ground, but you're going higher every time. That's what learning a musical instrument or learning the harp is like. We're going to be playing scales from the time we start until we stop playing the harp. We're still going to be playing scales, but our scales are going to get better. They're going to get more fluid. They're going to get faster. They're going to get more complicated. They're going to be hands together. They're going to be hands in different directions. There are all kinds of things, all kinds of ways that our scales are going to get better. The music that we learn, I mean, just, a piece that you play as a beginner. Oh, I was talking about this with somebody yesterday. The piece that you play as a beginner can be a great piece to play later on. I was talking with a student. We're starting a piece. It's not a beginner piece, but I played it when I was quite young. I was showing her some of the funny handwriting. Then I was writing notes in my music, like slow in big capital letters. I don't even think I'd learned cursive writing at that time. But that particular piece came in so handy for me when, as a college student, I started playing lots of background music gigs, and I needed a lot of music, a few hours worth of music. And I pulled that out and I played it. It didn't sound like a beginner piece anymore because I wasn't a beginner anymore. And I could come back to that piece and make it something a little bit more special. And yet it was still pretty easy to play. So we keep going around the same stuff. We just get better at it. So don't worry about finishing, because you're going to come back and you're going to be able to finish it more. So, you get to call it done when you're ready to call it done. Okay, such a great perspective. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's an important one. This is what keeps us sane. To understand that you don't have to get it perfect or even completely right to be able to go on to the next thing, I think is an incredibly valuable lesson. And it's not one that is instinctive to us as beginners. We want to get everything correct. But speaking as somebody who's far down the line, I can tell you that trying to get everything perfect all the time is so slow. And it's not exactly a waste of time, but Janet says, yay. Yeah, it's not exactly a waste of time, except that we want to move faster. We want to learn more. And why should you suffer the frustration of trying to get something perfect when you could be moving on and learning more things that are going to help you in your harp journey rather than just getting one piece right? Oh, Regilla says, that's been hindering my progress and process, if I'm being honest. And you've unlocked that for me. Woohoo! Light bulb, congratulations. I'm so glad I could be helpful. I had an aunt. She was actually my mother's aunt, my Aunt Floss. And she'd taken piano lessons, I guess, she and my grandmother and their other sister when they were kids. And my grandmother didn't play anymore, but my Aunt Floss remembered one piece. She could play the Black Hawk Waltz, it was called. I don't know, but she could play that one piece. Now she stopped taking lessons. She didn't play anything else. But I remember when I was young, she could sit down at the piano and even when I was young, I knew she was kind of stumbling through the Black Hawk Waltz, but she played it. And over the next, number of decades that I knew her, the Black Hawk Waltz didn't get any better because she didn't practice. It just got worse and worse. But she was a one-trick pony. I mean, I loved my Aunt Floss for lots of things, but not for the Black Hawk Waltz. That was the only thing she knew because she had learned it and she could play it. I don't want that to happen to you guys. That's not what harp playing is about. It's not about just playing one piece really, really well. I mean, if that's what you want, okay, but I don't think most of us want that. All right, so let's look at some of these specific strategies. If you go on to the next page, it says 7 specific super pro strategies. Woohoo! Glad I can say that. Okay, so these are blanks to fill in. So the first one here is play a little something new every day. All right, you may not be doing an etude a day. That's a little bit excessive, but if you just play a little something new every day, a line of a new piece, or maybe you have a book of pieces, or you get a book of pieces that's really easy for you, and you play just a little bit of one of those pieces, if you play, or the next line of a piece you're working on that you haven't done before, do something new. And you know why? Because it pushes you forward, because it keeps you from just staying in that same little box, and it gives you a little bit more experience. LL says, knowing that the techniques grow with you makes it a whole different thing than when you don't know that. Yes, the techniques grow with you. Absolutely. Every step of the way. At least that's the point, right? Okay, so number 1, play a little something new every day. Number 2, rotate your practice focus. Now, I said I was going to come back to, we were talking about people saying, I don't know how to practice. Well, one of the things that is really helpful, and I talk about this in my Kaleidoscope practice book, but I talk about it a lot anyway. But one of the things that's really helpful is to focus on something that you're working on differently. So I've got a piece here. I was working on this piece earlier with a student, elegy, and say we're learning the first page of elegy. Well, all right, you could go through it one time with the focus being perfect technique. If you miss some notes, okay, we're just working on technique. I mean, ideally we want to get all the notes, but it doesn't always happen because we're focusing on technique. So we have to let some other things go. Maybe the next time we focus on speed and we play just a little bit faster than we were doing. And maybe the third time through, we're going to focus on dynamics. So we haven't tried to do technique and speed and dynamics all at once, but we've done all 3 of those things. And in doing all 3 of those things, we've pushed the piece forward, right? We've given ourselves challenges with the piece, but we've also given ourselves permission to let some of the other things go so that we could focus on what we wanted to do. I'm focusing on technique now, so I'm going to play really slowly, and I'm not going to worry about dynamics. Now I'm focusing on speed, so I'm going to play a little faster. My technique, I'm not going to worry if my fingers don't close. I'm just going to try to get them to the right strings at the right time. And now I'm going to focus on dynamics. So once again, I'm going to not worry about my technique, but maybe I'll go a little slower. I'm not going to worry about the speed either. I'm going to really focus on making it musical. So we've created a definite focus, right? We're not just doing something 3 times or 10 times or whatever it is you want to do. Maybe you want to do 3 times on technique and 2 times on dynamics and 1 on speed. I don't know. But, we're not just putting in the repetitions. Repetitions are necessary because it's the repetition that helps us learn, right? So repetition is necessary. But to say, okay, this is what I'm thinking about right now. This is what I'm working on right now, and I'm letting the other things go. It's going to give you the opportunity to really focus on all the things you need to do to move the piece forward, but one at a time. And that's how you make progress in your practice. So that's what I mean when I say rotate your practice focus. Maybe you say, okay, tomorrow's the day I'm going to work on this piece, but I'm just going to work on my technique with this piece. Okay. Then the next day, work on something else with it. Review the technique once and then work on something else. It's another way to rotate your practice focus. But this will keep you moving. Okay. All right. Number 3, go for flow. Remember to aim for the music, not just the component parts of the music, right? It's not just fingers and notes and dynamics. It's the picture that music makes. And that's where you want to go. So make one of those repetitions at least an experience of playing the piece. Forgive yourself the wrong notes. Don't worry about your technique for this one. Just try to play the piece. That's important experience too. It's so vital, because if you don't practice playing, then you don't get to play. You don't get good at it. So go for flow. All right. Number 4, balance. Balance slow practice and faster practice. Don't ride the brake all the time, right? So slow practice is important, but let yourself go a little bit. Say, all right, well, I've done my slow practice. Now I'm going to try it just a little faster. See what happens. You don't lose by experimenting, right? You're not going to get into bad habits. Don't fear the bad habits. You're not going to get into bad habits with that. You just want to experiment a little bit. Do your slow, careful practice, and then give it a whirl. See what happens. Take it for a spin, a test drive, right? Okay. Number 5, practice hands together as well as hands separately every day. What fell that time? I don't know. I have falling Post-it notes. Which one fell down? Good technique. Good technique should not fall down. Good technique needs to be up here. Okay. So yes, you should be practicing hands together and hands separately every day. Don't just learn a piece hands separately without trying to put it hands together. It's going to take twice as long at least to learn it if you're not trying it hands together. So hands separately is important because it's going to give you the chance to really focus on each hand. As you get a little bit better, I will always suggest do some hands together practice first. Say, okay, I'm going to take the first 4 measures or whatever it is. I'm going to play them hands together. Then I'll check out the right hand. Then I'll check out the left hand. Then I'll put it hands together again. If you have to check the hands separately first, that's okay. But put it hands together. Don't wait until your hands separately is perfect before you do hands together, because trust me, right hand plus left hand does not equal hands together. 1 + 1 does not equal 2 in the world of harp playing. A right hand and a left hand, each one on its own, totally different than hands together. And you've probably already experienced that because it's true. So don't cheat yourself by just doing hands separately and putting off hands together practice. Okay. Number 6, review pieces you've already played at least weekly, like every week. 2 E's, not an E and an A. Be sure to review pieces. It's important to play. The pieces that you've learned are your repertoire, even if the only piece so far is hot cross buns or something. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Play it. As you learn more pieces, play them. You don't have to play them all, but if you have a piece that you can play, first of all, having a piece that you can play is so important, because when somebody comes over to your house and they say, "Oh, that's a harp. Do you play?" And then you say, "Yes, I do." And they say, "Oh, play something for me." "Well, I can't. I just never. I'm practicing. Everything's in progress." No, you should always have something you can play. First of all, because it's in a situation like that, it would be nice to be able to do that. But because we're here to play the harp, that's what we do. When you have a piece you can play, by golly, you should play it. Okay, that's what we do. We play. Number 7, this is my favorite one. Make mistakes. Yes, make mistakes. We want you to make mistakes. Because if you're not making mistakes, you're not pushing yourself to make progress, right? Progress doesn't happen in perfection. There's no beyond perfection. You won't get better. So push yourself to where you make mistakes. If you're already making mistakes, that's okay. But then now you can feel good about them. Mistakes point out those things that you need to develop. They point out the next step that you need to take. They're a sign of progress. And this is the one daily habit that I would love you to incorporate, to say, okay, yes, I've made mistakes today and I've worked at fixing some. Whoo, that's a good day. And it is. You're going to make mistakes anyway, so why not just, embrace them, right? But they are part of progress. There are all kinds of people. You can look online and you'll find all kinds of sports coaches and all kinds of people who said, nope, if you're not making mistakes, you're not working hard enough. And for me, it's not about working hard enough. It's just that the mistakes are a result of our striving for progress. And that's why they're so vital. They're part of the process. Go ahead and embrace them, So now I have a little bit that I want to finish up with for you, but do you have questions about all this stuff? I for a couple of you, I can tell I sort of gave you permission in a whole new way to look at your practice and what you do. And I know some of you have been in my world for a long time, and you've heard some of those things before. But what kind of, do you have questions, things that I can help you, specific things, maybe things I didn't talk about? Because there's only so much I can talk about in an hour. I could talk a lot longer, but we didn't commit you for that. So what do you think? Does this make sense? Do you see how when you're a beginner, you can be very tempted to keep yourself slow so that you get everything right? But keeping yourself slow, making sure that all those details are correct, is not the fast track for learning. So you can strike a balance there. Joy said, I think I may be doing better than I thought I was. Well, I love it. Excellent. Excellent. That's terrific. Nothing like some affirmation, right? Confirmation that you're on the right path. This has been really helpful. Oh, I'm so glad. Lori likes the idea of playing a little something new every day. Yeah. Many of us, I know I'm guilty of this, have whole stacks of music that we got that we haven't played yet. So just, taking one out every day and sort of looking at it, even if it's just for 5 minutes. It's like, oh, okay, that was fun. Let me go on to something else. Let me get on with the hard stuff. So let me tell you what's coming next. So tomorrow, we will send out the replay of this call. And in that same email with the replay, you will get a PDF. And actually, the PDF is the Get Started checklist. Lynette says, condensing the basics into clear ideas helps dispel the overwhelm. Well, you're welcome. Yeah, overwhelm's not a fun place. No. Let me share my screen for a second because I want to show you where your Get Started checklist came from. No, I clicked on the wrong thing. There we go. That's better. Share screen. And we're going to, which screen am I sharing? I can't tell. I think I'm sharing this one. No, maybe this one. That one. Okay. All right. There we go. Okay. So this is the My Harp Mastery welcome screen, which many of you guys know. But I want to show you something that is in here now. The curated for you courses, these are where, these are the courses that, we've got endless numbers of courses here. We've got, 70, 80 courses, I don't know, that to choose from. So what I have done with these curated for you courses is sort through all the archives and put them together in a little curriculum list. And so now there is one that I just posted recently called Just for Beginners. So this is, the whole list of courses that we have on the My Harp Mastery site. and I know some of you don't have access to this, so that's okay. I'll talk to you about that here in a second, about what is coming in the email for you. So, but I'll just show you how it's organized. So lesson 1, do you have what you need? And this has all the links to click through to the courses that you have that talk about the stuff that you need. And oh, look at that, a couple of things for tuning. Those basic ingredients again, right? Beginning technique. We've got some things on scales, and of course the build level of build, extend, advance, some arpeggios, some all that kind of stuff. So beginning technique, beginning note reading, some of the note reading courses that we've got that you can link to. Beginning music theory, mastering time counting and the metronome, starting the practice habit, and all of these are linked. So if you're a My Harp Mastery member, this is easy to find. And as I said, I just published this just a day or two ago, so you probably didn't know it was in there. And then this also has stuff about how to learn any piece. So, different things that we have talked about in the Monday night calls. So these are all Monday night calls that have been archived. Everything's there. There are a couple of PDFs that are, or at least one, I think, that's thrown in here in the downloads. I think there's one PDF. Yeah, the cheat sheet for key signatures. So if you're not a My Harp Mastery member, you will get a getting started checklist, but it also has some additional resources, which I have to add to this one. Your checklist looks very much like this, it's organized the same way, but it has some external resources that you'll be able to use as well, some recommended books and that kind of stuff. But it's organized the same way so that you can look and see what's there, and we'll also, I think you'll also find that I have a special offer that I wanted to make for you. I have taken the beginning note reading course that we have here, the portion of that course, and I've separated that out. So if you want help with note reading, I've taken these 3 calls that we have, and I've made them available for you who are not My Harp Mastery members as a paid course. So you can get that, because I find note reading is one of the places that people slow down. So that will be available for you as well. So, but that cheat sheet, or no, the getting started checklist rather, is coming for you tomorrow in the email. And so you'll have that and have all the resources. And as I said, they're not just the My Harp Mastery resources. You'll have external resources as well. So that's coming. And that will show up at some point in your email tomorrow. So that's something to look forward to. Anything else that we can talk about tonight? I think we talked about practice a little bit, because organizing your practice is sort of a biggie. We do have practice resources obviously available for you, like the Spark Practice Journal and all those kinds of things. And you can find those on the website. You can find them in our shop. You can find them on the app. So all those things are there. But thinking about moving along, making strides a little faster is always helpful. So what else can I help you with tonight before I say good night and let you get on with the rest of your day? I can't believe it's a week before Thanksgiving. Can you? It's crazy. Time goes so fast. Janet says she loves all the little reminders. Joyce says sometimes she tries a little improv at the end of every practice session. That's pretty good. I like that. So these are by the way, these are these strategies are the things that I learned. Some of them my teachers told me, but some of them were things that I discovered in my own playing and my own teaching. And I don't want anybody to get to be overwhelmed. And the beginning of harp study is so tricky that way. So, but as Connie says, it's great to go over this because we can always use it. You can always use these reminders. So, all right. I want to thank you for being here. I so appreciate you taking time to join me for this. Oh, Joyce says, thanks for sharing all these concepts. Well, you are so welcome. And have questions. If you have questions about this, just let me know. You can always shoot me an email and we'll do that. As I said, the replay and the get started checklist will be winging their way to you tomorrow. So you will see those. And if there's anything else I can do for you, or Harp Mastery has plenty of resources, but just let me know and we'll get you to the right place. So thanks so much for being here. I'm so glad to talk to you all, and I will talk to you all very soon, I hope. Okay. Good night, everybody. See you.